Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to a very, very special edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. That's right, folks, we're chilling in the comic book corner for just one day longer. That is right, we are right in the middle, or basically at the end of our Seaman's Infinity War countdown. We are just one day away, folks. For some of us, slightly less than that. One day away from Avengers Infinity War. For me, I'm about 12 hours away. I'll be going to see it at 7 o'clock tonight, and I am ecstatic. But before we get there, we have one more film to talk about on our countdown. This is number 18. Not the 18th film. This was technically 17th, and we moved it to the back just because I like where it finally ends up. I think that leads us and prepares us for Infinity War a little bit more than Black Panther. So, with that, you know the drill. Pull up your chair, take a seat. Today, I talk about Thor Ragnarok. Oh man, this is a real good one, and so much to get into. So let's just jump right into it, starting with some bad. Couple things that I didn't quite like with the film. This is going to sound weird because it's probably the best part of the film, which is the humor, but it's a little too funny. There's several emotional beats in the movie. Whether it's Banner just dealing with the fact that he's not been Banner for 2 years, whether it's Thor and Loki both dealing with the death of Odin. There's just, Thor dealing with all sorts of things. He's dealing with the loss of his dad, his hammer, his hair. Thor has a lot going on in this movie in general, right? He's been chasing down Surtur for this whole for this stretch of time because he's been seeing Ragnarok. He's been seeing these visions of the end of Asgard. So he's got saving Asgard on his mind. Then he loses his hammer. He loses his dad. And it's just there. In the past, this probably would have been like a Thor identity crisis movie. And I love that we go the humor route, but sometimes it just moves too quickly. When those emotional beats hit, we don't really get to stay there super long, and then we're right into the next joke. And we know that humor and emotion work really well, right? Guardians 2, I'm weeping like a baby at the end of that movie. But it's absolutely hysterical, and it's one of my all-time favorites. So just a note for Mr. Taika Waititi, who, man, has he breathed some fresh breath into Thor. Love what he does in this movie, but if you're gonna have an emotional beat, maybe let us sit there for a minute. Let the characters sit there for a little bit longer than they do. The only other thing that I really dislike with this movie is that Hela dies. We don't actually see her die. When Surtur strikes her down, we just see kind of a green flash. I'm praying that means that she's alive somewhere, because if you actually killed Cate Blanchett and Hela and took them out of the MCU, I feel like that's a waste, because what she does in this movie, oh man, I'm in love with Cate Blanchett after this film, man. She's awesome, and to not have her around going forward, especially when you could maybe make her into Death and play that into these next two, Avenger movies possibly, it would be a waste not to see her. So that being said, there's so much more good than there is bad. So let's start right at the top, and this cast is just excellent. Thor, of course, played by Chris Hemsworth. Man, he is better than he's ever been. He's on full display in this movie. Whether it's the action sequences, which are some of the best Thor action we've seen, we'll talk about those in a little bit. Whether it's the humor, which we're definitely going to talk about separately. There's so much to talk about there. But he is just on full display, man. Charisma, charm, the humor, just everything that is happening in this movie is working because you're letting Chris Hemsworth just go. I feel like he's been kind of held back, definitely in the Thor movies, and a little bit in the Avenger movies too. And Taika Waititi just, I think, lets him have full reign. Says, go have fun. And getting to see everything that Chris Hemsworth can do with the character is just wonderful. I love his new look. It was his idea. He came to Waititi and said, hey, we need to make this fresh. And I'm tired of wearing this wig. And the haircut thing works. I love the way it happens. I love who cuts it. That'll be in a separate video. I love the way it ends up looking, and it just all fits and works. I love that they got. I mean, I hate that they got rid of Mjolnir, but I love it too because it's all about starting fresh. And this feels like a fresh version of Thor, something the character really, really needed, especially in the solo movies. And now, we got Chris Hemsworth so psyched that he wants to come back and do more. So that's always a really good thing. I love that he has these lightning powers after he loses the hammer. His dad tells him, he's like, "What are you, the god of hammers?" Like, no, you're the god of thunder and lightning. And they give him all of Odin tells him in a vision, because Odin's already passed, that the hammer just focuses his power. It doesn't create his power. And then they give him lightning abilities that are just awesome. They play so well in the action sequences. They look so cool. I love when his eye goes lightning. I love the lightning wraps around. Oh, everything about it just looks awesome. So Chris Hemsworth's Thor, fantastic. Of course, Loki, Tom Hiddleston is back, and he's just always money. I could watch Tom Hiddleston play Loki every day. He's just classic. They're always just classic Loki. He's misdirects. He's always scheming. He's always looking for the advantage, and we get to see him play in some cool realms. We see him at the beginning of the movie where he's been running Asgard in quite an interesting way that we'll talk about. Then you get to see his relationship with Thor grow. And not just grow, but kind of conclude. They have a really, really wonderful scene in an elevator that's both hysterical and emotional. And again, this is where kind of you almost want that emotional beat to be a little longer. And Thor basically tells Loki, like, "Look, man, I've always loved you. I looked up to you, and that'll never change, but it's very clear that our paths separated a long time ago." And knowing that allows them to kind of have a lot more fun than they've had, I think, even in past movies. His action is great, too. You get some great hand-to-hand fighting for Tom Hiddleston in this. I love everything about Loki. He looks super cool in this one. The long hair, back, kind of a little bit more untamed, if you will. I love his outfit. Just the whole look for Loki and everything that Tom Hiddleston does with that character is just always absolutely wonderful. New add, Tessa Thompson, playing Valkyrie. Love her. She steals almost every scene that she's in. She's super funny. She pulls off all the action. I mean, the shots of her with the machine gun on the ship, just like wonderful visual shots. She looks fantastic. I love that Thor gives her Valkyrie outfit toward the end of the movie. I love her chemistry with Chris Hemsworth. I mean, it just oozes this whole movie. They just have such a great rapport with each other that they're really able to kind of play around and have some fun with the characters. And then she has this one sequence, man. It's a wonderful flashback sequence of when they fought Hela. And what's cool is there's kind of like a little nod to the comic book version of Valkyrie, who's the classic Nordic blonde kind of female look. She jumps right in front of a spear to save Tessa Thompson's version of Valkyrie. And man, could we not be happier about that, because Tessa Thompson, wonderful addition to the group. Of course, Mark Ruffalo back playing Hulk and Bruce Banner. This is maybe the best version of Hulk we've ever seen. I love this version of Hulk. I love that he's a little bit smarter, although still kind of dumb and childlike, because he's been Hulk for 2 years. He can talk a little bit now. He kind of has some basic sentence structure, which allows for some awesome comedy. Probably the best visual look of Hulk yet. I just love everything about him. I love going down the route of the Planet Hulk look for the battle sequence between Thor. On top of that, his action is great. Some of the best Hulk kind of stuff we've gotten to see from him. He's absolutely hysterical. Some of the combos he has with Thor are great, where he's like, "Yes, Thor puny fire, Hulk raging fire." Stuff like that is just wonderful. And then even the Banner stuff is great. I love when we get to Mark Ruffalo back, that he is freaking out, but not freaking out in like a really serious, dramatic way, but in a very over-the-top, humorous way. It really makes you kind of giggle, especially when he's stumbling through the Hulk parade. I love the Quinjet sequence where Thor is like trying to get access and he can't do it, and he finally calls himself whatchamacallit, when he's in the Quinjet, he can't, he tries to go with like strongest Avenger, and he can't get onto it. Where did it go? Point Break. That's right. So he finally goes Point Break, which is what Tony used to call him. So I love that callback. I love that when Hulk shows up, Hulk, does the thing, and they're like, "Hello, strongest Avenger," because it's Banner. I love that Nat pops up, and that kind of gets Hulk to start transforming back, and then Hulk stops it, or tries to stop it. He starts punching himself because he doesn't want to leave. The idea of Banner kind of freaks him out. I mean, he even tells Thor in the action sequence when they fight each other in the battle ring. He's like, "No Banner, just Hulk." So I love that whole sequence, and I love what happens afterwards. I loved how he's just kind of on the edge, and then I love how once again we get to reintroduce good old Bruce Banner jumping out of a plane or falling in some way, and instead of becoming the Hulk, he just bounces off the Bifrost Bridge and then becomes Hulk when you least expect it. Really, really funny stuff. Love Mark Ruffalo in this. Now, easily my favorite add to this movie. Cate Blanchett as Hela. Oh my good God. She is gorgeous in this film. The look of Hela is amazing. I love her wardrobe. I love her makeup. I love just what Cate Blanchett brings to the character, man. She just, like, the look that she gives, oh man, everything about Hela is wonderful. I fell in love with Cate Blanchett by the end of this movie. I have no problem admitting that, because wow. And she is badass, man. Her action sequences are amazing. I love the way that she throws the knives and things from nowhere. We know it's from her cape, but the way they shoot it, it's amazing. I love that she just comes in and cleans house, man. I mean, she kills all three of the Warriors 3 in this movie. Sif wasn't around for filming. If she had been, she might have gotten axed, so maybe better that she wasn't for her. But man, just the way she comes in and just tears down Asgard. I love that the closer she gets to Asgard and the longer she's in Asgard, her look updates with her powers. Her outfit changes multiple times. It's very, very kind of almost all dark greenish black at the beginning, and then you start to see this really prominent green line. I love that advances, and just her action is awesome. And I love her story and her background. She comes in and she sees that Odin's ceiling is not the way it used to be, right? It's pictures of him and Thor and Loki and all this, like, the treaties and the peace, and she breaks it down, and it's her and Odin basically just conquering all 9 realms and kind of like putting order to a sense, but because they were taking over. You see that Hela used to ride this massive dog, Fenris, who's in the movie, awesome. Used to have the hammer. So I love all that. I mean, she's just she's got depth. Cate Blanchett, just from her acting, what she brings, just makes Hela such a great villain. One of the reasons why I was so sad that she's apparently dead. We'll see how that plays out. And then the supporting cast in this film is great too, right? I mean, you get familiar faces with Idris Elba back as Heimdall. Now he's got some dreads and just a really different kind of on the run look, because he's kind of, it's exactly what he is. He's on the run. He's kind of leading a rebel cause. So I like that he kind of is leading this resistance, has more to do. He has some badass sequences. Always love Idris Elba. Carl Urban joins the cast as Scourge, and a little while he's Executioner for Hela. Really awesome. He's the one who's supposed to take over for Heimdall, but he's just like, he uses it as a way to brag, pick up women. He's about boozing women and killing. He's really funny in this movie, and then even though he looks out for numero uno the whole movie, which I love. But that gives him this awesome redemption moment at the end of the movie, which is really nice. Anthony Hopkins, of course, is back as Odin, always just powerful, commanding. Has some really touching moments, even though we move past them kind of quick. He's just wonderful. anything that has to do with Jeff Goldblum playing the Grand Master is amazing, because it's just Jeff Goldblum being Jeff Goldblum in some outrageous wardrobe. But he's absolutely hysterical. I love the way he talks to Thor. I love the way he talks to everybody. He has this cool visual effect where they send up this hologram version of him so he can talk to the whole city of Sakaar. Awesome. I just love the swag and the arrogance and just, it's Goldblum getting to be Goldblum dialed up a little bit. And he's just hysterical every time he's on screen. We'll talk about some of his stuff. And of course, Taika Waititi, who comes in to voice Korg. I love his relationship. One, he's this huge, massive rock, and he's got this high-pitched little Kiwi voice. And he's so funny. I mean, just that natural Kiwi humor. I think it's Kiwi humor, right? If I'm wrong, I'm really sorry, Taika, but I love his humor. What he brings to the character of Korg, just every time he talks, he makes you laugh. His relationship with Thor is really, really awesome, and I like that he just kind of continually just shows up places. He's like, "Hey, man, we were gonna run, man. You wanna hop on our ship?" Does stuff like that a bunch. He's just really funny, and it's not a surprise because it's his movie. So speaking of Taika Waititi, I love Taika Waititi for so much more than just Korg. Like I said, he breathes a ton of life into Thor in this movie, and so refreshing to kind of watch this kind of a comedy in the Avenger world, because it works really, really well. He blends it so well with the action and the humor. And it's something that Thor needed outside of the Avengers, and even in the Avengers at this point, he needed something new, and this definitely gave him the jolt. And of course, where Taika Waititi lives is the comedy humor realm, and the comedy and humor in this movie is stupendous. I love little things that he does in this movie. He starts with kind of a voiceover of Thor as we kind of find him caged, and he's like, "Yeah, I bet you wondering how I ended up in this cage. Like, what have I been up to?" Because he hasn't been around, and he's kind of having this opening monologue with what feels like the audience. And ultimately, in the cage, there's a skeleton, and Taika, eventually spins the camera so you see it. The head falls off, and Thor's like, "Man, you think we're ever gonna get out of here?" But just a really clever, funny way for Thor to have this monologue that was really important to kind of establish what he's been up to, because we haven't seen him for 2 years. Just little things like that, really, really funny. I love that when he's talking to Surtur in the opening sequence, he's chained up, right? It's that shot from the trailer where he falls down the chain and then is kind of hanging there. And while he's talking to Surtur, he's spinning. So every once in a while, he'll start not being able to see Surtur. He's like, hold on, just wait 1 minute. I'm coming back around. All right, what were you saying? Like, that stuff is hysterical. So just these like little tiny things that he does, and the way he utilizes that with Thor to set that scene up. The spinning is just buying Thor time to kind of set up what the action that comes right after. That's amazing. And like I said, it's this great blend of back and forth, and we'll talk about the action just a little bit. I love when Thor finally does come home. He comes home to this crazy Loki love fest, right? There's this massive gold statue to Loki. The whole feel of Asgard has been dialed up to an over-the-top, like, I feel like I just walked into, like, a Greek or, like, Roman, empire, right? Like, just this feel, the wardrobe and the look and the way Odin's sitting there having grapes fed to him while he's watching this play be put on. It's very, very Games of Thrones-ish, if you will. And the scene with the play is hysterical. It's the play of Loki's death. And you get just these awesome little cameos that pop in that are hysterical. Liam Hemsworth plays his brother, which is wonderful. He's Thor in the scene. Sam Neill shows up as Odin, and then the big one, of course, Matt Damon playing Loki. Just absolutely wonderful. When you realize what's going on, man, you just laugh and laugh and laugh. And then, of course, like, I love the way that when Thor shows up and it's like, what is going on? And he puts it all together. He kind of threatens Odin and is like, come on, I know who you are, say it. And Odin's not kind of budging. He's like, oh, I'm Odin, and he throws the hammer and he grabs Odin, pulls him in front, and goes, I know who you are, brother. And you know that my hammer will do everything to come back to me. It doesn't matter what's in its way. So you better own up or the hammer's going to take your face off. And then, of course, Loki becomes Loki. And just all of those types of things are just hysterical in the movie. I love the Thor and Doctor Strange sequence. It's the one that we got the preview of in the Doctor Strange post-credit. Where he's sitting and, oh, tea, no, I don't drink tea, gives him the beer. The beer keeps filling up as he drinks it. But that whole sequence is hysterical, right? It's, I know that your brother Loki is here. What can we do to get rid of him? And he's like, well, we're trying to find my dad. He's like, so if I can find your dad, you'll take Loki and your dad and yourself out of here? Because obviously Doctor Strange, guardian of magic, and Loki uses magic more than anybody, probably. But I love once he says that, he's like, okay, and then he starts using the magic to make Thor jump to all the different rooms in his Sanctum Sanctorum. And every time he does it, Thor's like, oh, gee, almost spilling the beer, making you laugh. Wonderful, wonderful Easter egg. He comes in, him and Loki come to New York, so they're in, instead of showing up like drawing attention to themselves, they dress down and look normal. And that gives Waititi this wonderful opportunity to make Thor's hammer look like an umbrella, which is sort of a callback to how Thor in the comics, would I think the doctor that he would disguise himself as has a cane. If it wasn't a cane, then maybe it was an umbrella, but would smack that on the ground and then it would become the hammer. So the concept of disguising the hammer was wonderful, and then he does the Thor hammer thing and the umbrella comes flying to him. Because it's all done up with Loki magic. So that whole sequence, and then the other thing is Doctor Strange puts a portal underneath Loki in the middle of the city while they're looking for Odin. He falls through it, and then eventually he says, okay, look, we found where your dad is. Here you go, you can go this way. Here's your brother. Loki lands. He's like, I've been falling for a half hour. Just stuff like that. So good. I love how they end up on Sakaar. One, beautiful visual, maybe the best visual of using the Bifrost maybe ever. I love the look of Loki and Thor and Hela flying through the Bifrost. I love the fighting sequence that happens there, and I love that when she kicks Loki out and then kicks Thor out, they both land in Sakaar, but at totally different times. Loki's been there for like 3 weeks, I think. But I love that they send them there because it just sets up all this fun, wonderful stuff. And the opening sequence of Thor being Thor, he goes to be like, he gets in trouble and he goes like this for his hammer, and his hammer's not there because Hela just destroyed it. And the way he gets caught, which leads into Tessa Thompson's opening, which is just wonderful. I mean, she comes down on her plane, she's like, he's mine, and she's drinking she's drinking a fifth, and she throws it, and then she falls over because she's too drunk, but then eventually rebounds, has this awesome, puts on like these gloves that can command the guns on her ship and starts shooting everybody and captures Thor. So that whole sequence is really funny. As I mentioned, anything with Goldblum is great. He keeps calling Thor Lord of Thunder, even though he's the God of Thunder. When he says Asgard, he calls it Asperg. He does all these little things to just kind of chip away at Thor. It's like, yeah, I don't care who you are. Like, this is my world, and just there are so many instances. If Goldblum opens his mouth, you're laughing. Same thing with Korg, who's played by Waititi. As I mentioned, he is great. He meets Thor while Thor's picking out weapons for this battle. And Thor tells him about losing his hammer, and Korg makes this hysterical kind of sexual, intimate relationship joke about, man, like you and that hammer were really intimate, huh? And then he kind of goes off, and Thor's like, no, I don't ride the hammer. Like, I use the hammer to fly. He's like, oh, so you ride the hammer? That stuff is just really, really funny with Korg. Same thing when he's talking about going to fight the champion. He's like, oh, yeah, somebody fought the champion once. That guy over there, that's Doug. And he's like, Doug's dead. Thor's like, whatever, man, I gotta get myself out of here, so I'm gonna go. And he's like, all right, bye, new Doug. Just stuff like that. His little sidekick buddy that's with him all the time is, adds humor. He's constantly just popping up places and saving people. Like, he runs into Loki. He's like, hey, man, I'm gonna get on my ship. You want to come with me? Just all this really funny stuff for Waititi to do with Korg. Let alone, like I said, he's a giant rock monster with this little tiny high-pitched voice. I love that, even though it's stupid, I love when Thor is like, I'm putting together this team, and we're called the Revengers because we're on our way for revenge. Just really funny. I like giving the group a name, and he's like, he can't think of anything better than Revengers. I love that Hela's not just badass, man. She has a wonderful sequence where she's with Scourge, going through Odin's treasure room, and you hear Scourge go, "Oh, the treasure, like Odin's treasures," and first thing she sees is the Infinity Gauntlet that we saw way early on. Like, wow, that's there. How does how in the world does Thanos end up with it? And she grabs the gauntlet and goes fake. Walks by the Frost Stone from the Frost Giants from the first Thor, goes weak. She looks at Surtur's helmet, smaller than I thought it would be. Walks by the Tesseract and goes, not bad. And then, but really is there for the Eternal Flame, because the Eternal Flame will give her the power to raise the army of all the dead soldiers, and of course her dog Fenris. But just her walking through and just kind of pushing things over and like, nah, that's not that great. Oh, that's not even real. Absolutely hysterical. Anything Thor and Hulk in this movie is great. Their relationship is fantastic. Mark Ruffalo's Hulk and Thor just play off each other so well. Any of their banter, they have a lot of back and forth, almost kind of like big brother, little brother bickering when little brother is bigger than big brother is. Constantly building on the fact that like they're always saying they're the two most powerful. Like I said, the scene on the Quinjet when Thor tries to get on and he's like strongest Avenger, and eventually he goes to Point Break, and then when Hulk gets on, like I said, it's like, hey, welcome strongest Avenger. Like there's that conversation always going on in their fight sequence. It really, you don't know who would have won that fight because someone kind of interrupts it, and we'll talk about that. But I mean, all of that's funny. For me, the funniest scene though with Thor and Hulk is when after the fight, they're back in like their quarters, and Hulk gets up out of a hot tub. And Thor's like, oh, hot tub Hulk. And then it's naked Hulk. And Thor, you don't see anything but like the backside of Hulk. But Thor is just like, oh, no, now that's in my head. I'm never gonna unsee that. That whole sequence is really, really funny. And then Thor's like, I'm just gonna get out of here. And like, Hulk is like, all right, Thor, go. And Thor goes to walk out, and Hulk knows that there's kind of like an electric kind of laser fence, like door there. And Thor goes to walk through it, gets zapped, falls down. Hulk starts laughing. He's like, Thor, go again. Just stuff like that. They call each other names and they're bickering. It's just all really, really funny. And then, of course, I love the Thor and Loki scenes. Just building on what they did. Some of the good stuff they did in Thor 2 was the relationship scenes between Thor and Loki. And we get a ton of that in this movie. And a ton of it is humor driven, right? Like, I love when they play Get Help after the really emotional, kind of touching scene in the elevator that I talked about. Thor's like, so we need like a plan going forward. He's like, let's do Get Help. And Loki's like, I'm not playing Get Help. He's like, come on, it works every time. And the elevator door opens and Thor's holding Loki. He's like, someone get help, my brother. And everyone's like, what? And then he picks Loki up and throws him through everybody, and Thor just laughs. He's like, it works every time. Loki's like, I hate you. But then at the same time, Thor is wise to what Loki does, knows he'll eventually double cross him, and which Loki does. Loki sends a projection version of himself with Thor and kind of runs around to get something. And Thor turns and goes, Loki, I knew you would double cross me. And he tapped, there's an electrocuting kind of little zapper that Tessa Thompson puts on Thor at the beginning of the movie, and without the controller you can't take it off but one thing, and it just paralyzed zaps you. So he does that to Loki and leaves it on until Korg finds him and picks it up, and Loki's like, thank you for saving me. But like, just all of that stuff is really funny with them. I love during the Hulk Thor battle sequence the way Thor sees Hulk and is like, he's a friend from walk. I love his reaction, and then Loki is like, oh, no. Like, no. He's like, Loki, look, it's Hulk! Loki's reaction is obviously like, oh, no. And then when Hulk ends up picking up Thor and bashing him around, like he kind of did Loki jumps up and starts clapping. He's like, yes, that's what it feels like So all the Thor and Loki stuff, absolutely hysterical. And since we've mentioned a little bit of action now, let's get into the action sequences, which are also phenomenal in this movie. Such a great job by Taika Waititi and what he does visually. He just gives you some visual shots that are unbelievable. There's a shot when they finally get through the Devil's Anus, which is the big portal in Sakaar, to get out, and they're on their it's not the Quinjet, it's the Grand Master's ship, but it's kind of like a Quinjet. But they're flying to Asgard. It's Thor, Banner, Valkyrie, and as they pull up, man, you just get the shot of them coming up from underneath Asgard, so you see the water falling off and it just kind of floating there. Just these gorgeous visuals through the whole movie. But that all is weaved into the action and the CGI, and it's just all wonderful and great. I love the opening fight sequence that we kind of mentioned before with Surtur. After all of Thor's funny, stuff with the spinning and just kind of buying time, he, gets to the right spot. He breaks out of the chains. Mjolnir flies, and it's the last time we're going to get to see him with the hammer, and Taika Waititi doesn't waste it, man. Some of the best hammer stuff. I love the way it spins in the movie, and the way he flies, the way he throws it, the way he uses it to kill all of Surtur's little henchmen. The whole scene is just a ton of fun. Thor getting to do Thor stuff, right? It's the last time we ever get to see Thor look like Thor and do old school Thor stuff. And Taika gives you all of that in this sequence. I love that when he finally defeats Surtur and gets the helmet, he's trying to get out, and Heimdall isn't responding because it's not Heimdall. Scourge is now the new guy running the Bifrost while Hulk's been gone, or while Thor's been gone. And then this giant dragon comes up, so Thor starts running, and he's like, Heimdall! And finally Scourge notices, does it, the Bifrost comes down, it decapitates as it comes down, it's like right as the dragon's kind of going for Thor, so it decapitates him. And when it shows up, it just throws dragon goo all over the place, and it's Scourge and the women that he was trying to impress, which is why he couldn't hear Thor. So that whole sequence is amazing. As I was alluding to, the Thor-Hulk fight is probably my favorite action sequence in the movie. It's one of my favorite action sequences in all of the Marvel films because it's so much fun. Getting to watch our two strongest heroes just straight up go at it in this giant arena kind of setting is amazing. And, you just get these wonderful visual big shots like that, that splash page shot of them like flying at each other. You get some quick action, and then Thor loses his new, swords and gets smashed into the wall and ends up with this big kind of iron rod that has this giant, massive thing that kind of looks like a hammerhead on the top of it. Love the way that he uses it like a baseball bat to hit Thor, or hit Thor to hit Hulk, and Hulk kind of flies all the way around the outside wall. I love that all of a sudden Thor finds some lightning power and is beating the crap out of Hulk. And Hulk is a goner, man. It looks like Thor's about to win the fight for once. And Grandmaster's like, no, not my champion. Hits the electrocuting buzzer that shocks Thor, and then that's how he loses. Hulk jumps up and bashes him in. But that whole scene is just gorgeous and a ton of fun. And like I said, it's the idea of it's that Thor doesn't know how to harness it, so it's like Hulk just pounding him into the ground wakes up all of this like lightning rage, and just like I said, that look and visual, just all really cool. I love Hela taking over Asgard. After she dispatches Thor and Loki off to Surtur by kicking them out of the Bifrost, she shows up and is just like, oh baby, and she does that thing where the horns pop up, and I just love, like I said, I love her look. I get distracted thinking about it. But when she comes in, man, she is just badass. She kills 2 of the Warriors 3 right out the gate, just boom, 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 boom. And then just lays waste to Asgard, right? She kills the 3rd of our Warriors 3. She's doing all this cool flipping and spinning and just throwing knives out of everywhere. She said it was so cool for her kid to watch this movie and see mom like doing all this badass stuff, and she is badass. That whole sequence, man, it's just so creative in the way that she moves and the way she delivers her weapons, and just action packed and looks gorgeous the whole time she's fighting. And then, of course, the finale. The finale is also a ton of fun. You get really awesome Thor Hela stuff. She's out, doing her thing in Asgard, and Thor gets there and he takes the scepter and just starts pounding it on the floor. And that draws Hela in, and they just have this really great fight sequence, man. They use a lot of cool things that we haven't seen. We get to see Thor spin. We get to see Thor spin because of the way Hela throws him. Later on, down in the Bifrost, when he's got all the lightning power going, he does the spin move that's kind of like right out of like Tekken or Mortal Kombat. That's really awesome. But just the bit between him and her is really good back and forth. She totally matches up with Thor. I mean, I like that they, instead of her being Odin's sister, which is how it is in the comics, I like that they made her Thor and Loki's older sister. So it's not Odin's sister, it's Thor and Loki's sister. And she matches with Thor, man. And it's just, that whole sequence is a ton of fun. I love that she hits Thor and takes his eye out. It looks great. Considering that it's basically just Thor with his eyes closed, kind of. But like, I love that. I love that concept of kind of giving him like, oh, now you look like your dad. Like I said, the lightning power on display stuff is just the way he shoots lightning and the spinning and just the sheer power. I love all of that. Hulk vs. Fenris is great, right? It's right after Banner bounces off the Bifrost Bridge. He lands in the water, and Fenris is about to like jump on all of the Asgardians that are fleeing with Idris Elba. With Heimdall, they're fleeing to the ship that now showed up with Loki and Korg, but they don't know that they're on the Bifrost and they're kind of stuck. And Fenris goes to jump, and Hulk grabs Fenris. Now Hulk showed up, grabs Fenris. Man, just an awesome fight with him until he throws him off of Asgard. I love that. Like before Thor gets his lightning powers, he kind of goes to a place where why he's kind of in a lot of trouble, and he sees Odin. Odin's like, "What are you, the god of hammers? Like, use your lightning powers, channel that energy." I love that aspect of the fight. I like that he says that Thor says to Odin, "I'm not as strong as you," and Odin goes, "No, you're stronger." And then you get just great Thor action stuff. I love that, like, because in that conversation, Odin's like, Asgard isn't a place, it's a people. And that makes Thor go, "Oh man, sir, we got to make Ragnarok happen." Tells Loki to go get, put Surtur's helmet in the Eternal Flame to bring Surtur back. And then, of course, we see Loki walk past the Tesseract. We know he snags that. And I love that they basically use Ragnarok to win the fight. I love that Hulk goes to fight Surtur, and they're like, "No, for once, Hulk, don't smash." And he gets knocked down and comes back, and he's like, "Big monster." Just really funny, really action-packed. I love the finale of the movie. And then, of course, the post-credit sequence, once everyone's on the ship and they're running away, we see this massive ship pulls up in front of Loki and Thor's face. And we know that that's Thanos' ship. And we are off and ready to run to Avengers Infinity War. But before we do that, the one last thing about this movie that I absolutely love, like I mentioned, is the look. Because it's Jack Kirby everything. It's that zany Technicolor color scheme. Even the score kind of has a Technicolor kind of vibe to it. You just have all those lines and circles that's famous for Kirby all over the movie. It's one of the most comic booky feels to a movie that we've seen, and of all people, Jack Kirby, the perfect person to pay tribute to. So Taika Waititi, for a guy that no one saw coming, you did a wonderful job with Thor Ragnarok. Really pumped. Like I said, can't wait, because we're probably going to start with that scene with Thanos and the ship when we get to Avengers Infinity War, for me tonight, for everyone else, well, for a bunch of other people tonight, and then, of course, tomorrow is the release day. So that's it. That's all I got to say about Thor Ragnarok. What do you guys have to say? Did you love this movie? Did you think it's nice to get a new, fresh Thor? All of the humor? Hit the comments. Let me know. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And as always, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and the little bell so that you get an alert every time I make a new video, including the finale to our Avengers Infinity War countdown, which will be our Avengers Infinity War review. I will have that later on tonight. Can't wait to go see this movie. So pumped. Oh, everyone should be jacked for this. Everyone should go see this movie. This should be the movie that wins all of the money awards, man. This should be the highest grossing film of all time. We've been building to this for 10 years, guys. So get jacked for Infinity War. Go see it tonight if you can. you probably already need a ticket. So if you're going tonight, enjoy. If you're going tomorrow or over the weekend, enjoy. Go see it multiple times. Support this movie, because look at the 18 movies that have led to it. What a wonderful thing that Marvel has created. And now we get to see the beginning of the end. So Jack, so for the C-Man Cinema Sit Down, I am the C-Man. I am signing off. Peace out, baby!